Welcome back to The Explainer. Today, we're unpacking something absolutely huge, a literal game changer in the economics of artificial intelligence. Based on our source material, we're breaking down the Codatta royalty economy in this entirely new framework called the Train Now, Pay Later model. Honestly, if you've ever wondered who actually gets paid when an AI learns from human data or why it isn't you, you're going to find this absolutely captivating. Let's get right into it.
Okay, let's dive into this. Imagine if every single time an artificial intelligence model used your data, you got paid. It's exactly like music streaming royalties. But instead of getting fractions of a cent when someone listens to a song, you're earning royalties for your knowledge. Every meaningful use of your data pays you back. It completely, totally flips the script on how we value human input in the age of AI.
To make sure we really grasp how this works, here's our roadmap for today. Number 1, streaming royalties for knowledge. 2, the Train Now Pay Later model. 3, how the engine works. 4, the life cycle of data. And finally, 5, a win-win ecosystem.
All right, kicking things off with Section 1, streaming royalties for knowledge.
So, what exactly do we mean by a royalty economy in the AI world? Well, at its core, it's a protocol-level mechanism that links AI data usage directly to continuous royalty flows for the people who actually own the data. Think about how it used to work. Historically, if you created high-quality data, you just sold it once. Boom, a one-off sale, and you never saw another dime. But this new economy, it moves AI data from that one-time transaction to a streaming, usage-based earning model. Whether your data is being used to train a model from scratch, fine-tune an existing one, or even when that AI is out there actively answering prompts, which is called inference, every consumption event is metered. The better your data, the better the resulting model, the more it gets used, and guess what? The more royalties you earn. This is what makes high-skill contributions, like expert labeling or providing evidence-backed signals, actually economically viable for creators. But here's the catch. If we change how data creators get paid, we inherently have to change how AI developers buy that data in the first place.
Which brings us right to Section 2, the Train Now, Pay Later model. This introduces a completely new business model. So the crucial point is this entirely new concept, TNPL, or Train Now, Pay Later. What this means in plain English is that developers can access the data they need to build their AI without having to shell out a ton of cash to purchase it upfront. They agree to the TNPL terms, they train their model, and royalties only flow back to the data owners if and only if the trained model actually launches and creates value. Going back to our music analogy for a second, it's basically like a DJ being able to sample your track to mix a new song for free, and they only pay you royalties if their new remix actually becomes a hit and starts making real money. It's an incredible shift in the risk dynamic.
Let's compare the workflows, because the traditional way is highly risky for AI builders. It requires massive upfront costs to acquire data before you even know if your AI model is actually going to work. It's what business folks call a CapEx, or capital expenditure model, heavy upfront investment. But compare that to the Train Now, Pay Later workflow. Developers just request access, they train and evaluate their model under an escrow-like agreement, and then they launch. It shifts the financial burden entirely to an OpEx, or operating expense model. Developers absolutely love this because it drastically reduces their upfront risk. They can keep their cash focused on finding product-market fit, not gambling it all on buying data. And contributors? They love it because they get this long-tail recurring income that scales up with the real-world adoption of the AI. Win-win, right?
Now let's look under the hood in Section 3, how the engine works. Now, you might be asking yourself, how on earth do you track all of these micro-royalties globally, fairly, and instantly without a massive headache? Well, you need a blockchain foundation. And we aren't talking about crypto hype here. We're talking about strictly necessary accounting mechanics. To make this royalty economy function, you absolutely have to have these specific building blocks. You need programmable ownership to manage fractional, time-bound shares that can update dynamically. You need provable provenance, which, simply put, is an unfakeable digital receipt so we know exactly who contributed what specific piece of data. You also need automated payouts via smart contracts. This is what routes these micro-royalties instantly across the globe without needing an army of accountants manually writing checks. And open market access ensures anyone can build without being locked inside a walled corporate garden. Without all of these elements working perfectly in concert, attribution becomes impossible to enforce, and paying out fractions of a cent per use just wouldn't be scalable. To really visualize how all these pieces fit together, let's jump into Section 4, the life cycle of data.
Let's walk through a quick story to see this four-step flow in action. Imagine a startup building a new AI tool to check crypto compliance. Crypto has massive volumes of accounts that need to be labeled accurately and fast. In step 1, sourcing and labeling, a contributor somewhere in the world creates annotations and evidence for these accounts. In step 2, listing and licensing, that highly specific data gets published to the network. In step 3, our AI startup uses the train now, pay later model to build and fine-tune their compliance AI using that specific labeler's data. Finally, step 4, usage and settlement. The startup launches their API, big companies pay to use it, and smart contracts instantly route a fraction of that revenue all the way back to the original labeler from step 1. It is a continuous feedback loop of royalties and reputation, and that continuous loop creates a highly collaborative environment.
Which leads us perfectly into our final segment, Section 5, a win-win ecosystem.
Now, what's really interesting about this breakdown is how the specific economic incentives map out. It's not just the person who creates the data who gets paid, it's a whole ecosystem. The contributor provides the original data and labels, and they earn a fractional share of ongoing royalties. But what about quality control? Well, that's the validator. They provide QA and counter evidence, earning their own royalty share plus immediate bounties. Then you have backers. Backers actually put down their own tokens to vouch for good data. It's a concept called staking as confidence. They help discover the best data, earning a share proportional to their impact. And finally, the protocol itself takes a tiny treasury share to sustain the infrastructure. Every single person who adds value to the data gets a verifiable, fractional piece of the pie. It's like a giant puzzle where every single piece gets rewarded.
Naturally, when dealing with data sharing, especially right now, in the era of AI models absorbing everything on the internet, some skepticism arises. A common and highly valid question is, wait, do I lose control of my data by putting it into the system? The answer from our source material is a definitive no. Your data isn't just thrown out into the Wild West. Access to your data is strictly policy-gated. The scope and the exact terms of how your data can be used are enforced by code directly on-chain. You stay in the driver's seat. Which of course brings up another huge question. What about privacy and regulation? Especially when we're talking about highly sensitive enterprise data. Well, the system uses a hybrid privacy design. This is super clever. It means the actual sensitive content stays completely off-chain and private, auditable data rooms. What actually goes on-chain are simply the cryptographic proofs, the digital fingerprints, the access policies, and the royalty flows. It perfectly satisfies strict enterprise governance while keeping the public ledger transparent and functional. Best of both worlds, really. We have covered a lot of ground today. We're shifting from a world where data is sold once for pennies to this dynamic ecosystem where creators become lifelong stakeholders in the AI models they help train. As AI continues to consume the world's knowledge at breakneck speed, you have to ask yourself, shouldn't the people generating that knowledge share in the immense value being created? This model proves that a fairer, open ecosystem isn't just a pipe dream. It's already being built. So I want to leave you with this powerful thought. What would the internet look like if every meaningful use of your data paid you back? Thank you so much for exploring this fascinating topic with me today, and I will catch you on the next explainer.